Breaking news for the Texans as they're adding more depth to the defensive line, re-signing this player played last year and was a pretty key part of the run defense in terms of why the Texans were top 10. So a lot to love from this signing. A big reason to why they held off for so long was pretty much the fact that he had an injury in the offseason, so had shoulder surgery, was not sure if he was going to be ready for the 2025 season or not. So I love the signing. It's definitely a great rotational piece in terms of what the Texans are going to do at the defensive line, more the defensive tackle spot. But if you're new to the channel, 88% of you are not subscribed. We've been growing pretty great over the past couple weeks, past month. Just thank you guys for watching. I appreciate all the support on the videos. Comment down below your thoughts on this signing. And if you want to stay up to date with all Texans news, hit that sub button. As far as the signing, it's Lorenzo Fatukasi, a key run stuffer last year, had a few injuries in terms of his ankle, missing the part of the regular season in the last 3 games, and then the shoulder surgery in the offseason, which kind of delayed the process of re-signing him. So now they re-sign him in May on probably a cheap deal. So I didn't see the exact number, but again, a vital part of the run game last year. 5.5 sacks in his career, so he's not necessarily a pass rusher by any means, but he can stop the run. And it's kind of crazy to look at. He led the team with his stuff rate in 4.8% and was tied for 3rd in run stuff tackles. So he just fights through blockers and just plugs up the holes in the middle. That's kind of what he did. And that was a part of why the Texans' run defense was top 10. And I mean, again, looking at the depth chart for the Texans, and we'll make it bigger here. So Sheldon Rankins is probably going to be the main tackle. You have Tim Settle, Mario Edwards, DeMeco Autry, and now Fatukasi. So a lot to rotate around, probably 4 tackles that can just go in and out of the rotation. And that's probably why the Texans run defense was so great last season, was the fact that this team had so many players that can just have fresh bodies out there. And when you have that, that is a good thing. Now, the PFF grade, we'll just say PFF is not necessarily a thing to live by. It's definitely not the best accurate, but this is probably based off his run grade, is mostly probably based off how much you win off those run tackles, how much you get off and get in open space. Fatukasi doesn't necessarily get off of blockers. He just moves them to where the runner is supposed to go, and he just knows where those lanes are supposed to be and has done a great job of plugging up the holes. So I mean, I love Fatukasi. I think the move is great because you look at the defensive line right now, and it's just, again, such a rotational thing. Again, DeMeco Autry, we don't know if he's going to be on the edge. We don't know if he's going to, most likely he'll probably play tackle, considering the amount of snaps that he had last year at the D-tackle position, probably going to be back there. Now, he was suspended for the first 6 games of the season last year, and then kind of split time with Settle, Fatukasi, Edwards. And again, when you have Fatukasi banged up as he was last year, missing weeks 16, 17, and 18 due to an ankle injury, that's kind of why you have the depth you do at defensive line. And the biggest thing, for me was I didn't know how this defensive tackle room was going to look, and that was one of the needs, quote unquote, for Texans fans. And I would agree, defensive tackle was nothing crazy, but even last year it wasn't anything crazy, and they did what they had to do to get the job done, and that's kind of all you can ask for. And although they don't have a Chris Jones, they don't have a crazy great defense tackle, they don't need that. And Sheldon Rankins and Tim Settle and Fatukasi, they all know the system, and that's kind of the biggest thing is when you play for DeMeco Ryans, he can put you in situations to succeed. He can find your greatest asset and put you in, and you can figure it out. So for this defensive line room in general, I'm just excited to see how everything's going to shape out. You have Fatukasi, who's going to be a beast in the trenches for you, and not to only mention, you have Rankins, you have Settle, you have Edwards, you have Autry, and Rankins you brought in the offseason, so that's a good sign as well. But I mean, there's really nothing more for me to say. I mean, the fact that you have so much to do with Fatukasi and move him around, that's kind of the biggest thing. And the only question you really have is does he come back healthy, right? Rehabbing that shoulder injury, he had an ankle injury as well, but I'm surprised he went unsigned for as long as he did. He's a veteran. He is 30 years old, and that's probably where you could probably start thinking for the future, right? And that's why I wouldn't have minded if they drafted a defensive tackle, because you look at this defensive line room, as great as it is, Will Anderson, young gun, he's going to get paid soon. Danielle Hunter, getting up there in age, just got paid as one of the highest defensive ends in the league, right next to Myles Garrett. But the biggest thing I want to note here is age is not on the Texans side, right? Sheldon Rankins, Tim Settle, Mario Edwards, Lorenzo Fatukasi, all guys that are probably on the end of their careers, right? And that's something you have to keep in mind, is you probably going to have to sign a defensive tackle that's younger, either pay somebody or draft somebody. Danielle Hunter is 30. Tim Settle is the youngest on the defensive line outside of Will Anderson at 27. And then everybody else, DeMeco Autry is 34. Mario Edwards is 31. And then Sheldon Rankins is 31. So, again, you're not going to have a lot of years left with this defensive line. And with the ages that everybody is, you can understand why the Texans are going more depth. I mean, it really doesn't hurt. And that's the thing is, although the defensive line is deep, the main key points are going to be Will Anderson and Danielle Hunter. Everyone else is probably just going to rotate in to fill up the middle. And that's how you win games. That's how you win drives. That's how you help out your defense, is manning the trenches, right? You can't have the same four bodies in there all game long. I mean, they're going to get tired, right? Especially when you got the big boys in the trenches. So the D tackles are pretty vital in terms of rotating around, especially when they're 30, especially when, you got to stay in shape. It's going to be tough. So Rankins, Settle, Edwards, Fatukasi, even Autry in there. You got 4 or 5 guys to rotate in now, and that's kind of what the Texans did last year when you look at all the snap percentages. So they're going to go with next man up. Settle was solid last year. Again, a younger guy, 27. So that's really all you're looking at now, is the Texans defensive line and the depth that they have, the rotational pieces that they're going to have. A lot of these guys are scheme fits for DeMeco Ryans, and I'm just waiting for the Texans to get a bigger name. A lot of people were saying maybe the Texans go defensive tackle first round. It looked like Caserio had a plan for most of the time in terms of how he wanted to execute the draft. He looked like he was going receiver the whole time in the first round, and then took Jaden Higgins in the second round. So, again, they didn't really take anybody in the draft. They did take the one defensive tackle out of Rutgers. They signed a free agent defensive tackle. So that's what you got to look at, an undrafted free agent. But I mean, the Texans they don't have much to have for in the future. So that's the problem, is the younger you have to get. But as far as the signing for Fatukasi, this is huge. I mean, the leader in stuff rate percentage last year, you need to bring him back, right? You can't just leave him in free agency. I was honestly surprised nobody wanted to go get him, but it's probably because of the injuries. It's probably because, he can't fit in everyone's scheme. But this is a good system the Texans have, a good 4-3. And I'm excited to see what the Texans defense is going to do this season. It's going to be a lot of fun. It's going to be a lot to look forward to. And now I'm probably comfortable with how the defensive line is shaping, because you look at this team and you're like, all right, what's the holes on this team? I would say defensive tackle and offensive line. And it looked like, honestly, they filled those holes. I wouldn't say there's a massive hole. It's like, we need to sign somebody to fill the need. And that's the thing. In years to come for the Texans, they would always have one position where I'm like, I don't know if that guy can be the guy. And that's the thing. DeMeco Ryans has had players step up, and I'm questioning, I don't know if that guy will step up. And they step up anyway, because they're put in a great situation to succeed all the time. So a lot of rotational pieces here for the Texans. Will Anderson, Sheldon Rankins. I'm going to keep repeating myself, but you're a lot to love. So a top 10 defense, most likely. We're gonna hope for the best for this defense, and maybe they'll sign a couple more players in the offensive line. But a 1-year deal, re-signing. You have Lorenzo Fatukasi coming back, a big part of that run defense last year, and that'll do it. So thank you everyone so much for watching. If you're new to the channel, again, hit that sub button for all Texans news. It's been Mike Zanetti, Texans Digest. Thank you for all your support on the videos, and we'll see you in the next one.